Hello. A couple of years ago, I made a video covering a CNBC article titled The Budget Breakdown of a 25-year-old who makes $100,000 a year and is excellent with money. And it was this smug guy named Declee who supposedly was good with money, but in reality it was just a bunch of fudge numbers to make a very difficult budget kind of come together. And I went really deep into this in the video that you can watch here. And I thought, let's have a look at some more articles kind of like this.
We can start by talking about this one. From The Guardian. It's titled,
How Gen Z is Rewriting Money Rules. I thrift, I splurge, I save 25%. They have this cute little drawing, which is, I don't know, I guess a little bit infantilizing of Gen Z. There's like a Nintendo Switch and gaming controllers, chocolate, pets, sneakers, and boarding passes because they want to travel. And then, of course, there's also eggs in the background because they're expensive. Haha, stupid. But it is, I guess, a cute thing. It just seems like mostly frivolous. A lot of Gen Z, I mean, people in general have to kind of tighten their living standards. But I'm going to start with the first person they mentioned, which is a lady named Jenna, who's 26 and lives in Cincinnati, Ohio. She works in some sort of food production branch and makes $64,000 a year. She claims that her rent is $1,150. I don't know what the best sources people look for rental units are in the States, but it seems that the average rent is around $1,450, which is also increasing several percentage points per year. The lowest I'm finding is $1,200. Most of them are $1,400, $1,500. Maybe a studio sometimes is like $1,260. Unless you're literally in the fucking middle of nowhere, right? Then it's like, yeah. Of course, she doesn't specify where she lives, but if she lives super in the suburbs and her job is in town, then she's gonna have to commute. And she mentions, oh, I inherited a good vehicle from my uncle, which should last for 10 years or so. All right, cool. My medical and dental health care are provided by my employer, and they reimburse me for using my mobile. So most larger expenses then are not covered by her. And then she mentions utilities, which are $80, which I already remember is nonsense. When you look at the average for American households, it's like $400, $500. And Cincinnati, it's $210. So it's already over double what she says. I'm sure there are more technical averages somewhere. Some places I can see like 150, 170. But still, that's not $80, that's for sure. And then she mentions food, meaning groceries. And the average grocery bill in the States depends on who you're looking at and what values, and looking at like more, I guess, partial sources, like people budgeting on Reddit or whatever, it's like $400 to $800 from what I'm seeing. So she's underneath this edge, or in the lower part of it at least. Back to the video in just a minute. Let's hear from today's sponsor, Hungry Minds. A lot of what we talk about on this channel comes back to the idea that complex systems don't appear out of nowhere. They're built piece by piece over long stretches of time. That's where Hungry Minds comes in, with a book called, well, The Book, The Ultimate Guide to Rebuilding a Civilization. Published by an international creative group of artists, scientists, architects, designers, amongst others, it's essentially an illustrated reference to how modern civilization is constructed, covering tools, materials, infrastructure, energy, communication, and other foundational systems we tend to take for granted. What makes it different from a standard history or science book is the presentation. The illustrations combine technical schematics with European medieval-style artwork, so instead of reading long explanations, you're often absorbing ideas visually. The book is substantial, over 400 pages, 180 topics across 23 chapters, and it's clearly meant to be something you return to rather than read straight through. The print quality stands out as well, with thick matte art paper, a laminated hardcover, and a layout that feels more like a curated archive than a textbook. It's also worth noting that this wasn't a niche release. The project raised over $2.3 million through crowdfunding, involving more than 50 contributors, and became a 2023 bestseller, published by Marsilio Art in Italy. Another small detail you might appreciate is that there's a hidden puzzle embedded throughout the book, which adds a quiet layer of depth if you're paying attention. If you like reference books, visual thinking, or just understanding how things actually work beneath the surface, this is an interesting book. It also works well as a gift for someone who already has too many ordinary books. So what are you waiting for? Head on over to the link in the description and use the code YourBoyHakeem10 for 10% off of your order of the book. Thanks to Hungry Minds for the sponsorship. This allows me to pay my editor fairly, which is much appreciated. Alright, back to the video. Jake, 28, Seattle in Washington. He works at some customer service job, and he makes $33,000 and some annually, and the rent that he splits with his wife is $1,700. Now, looking up average rents in Seattle, it seems to be around $2,000, sometimes higher. It depends on what you're living in. I mean, a studio is like $1,500, so slightly cheaper than what he's paying, but I'm doubtful he's living in a studio with his wife. So if he has a one-bedroom apartment, it quickly goes over $2,000. So, like, I'm sure there are lower rents being paid in these places, but there's a pattern of consistently underreporting these. In this particular example, I don't know how they got these people in and what they looked at, but they feel cherry-picked. I understand what they're trying to show, but it is a little bit like cheeky, right? And when you look at, for example, this institute called the Ludwig Institute for Shared Economic Prosperity. Now, I haven't looked into who funds this and exactly how they've done the methodology, but just for interesting, I guess, mental example, they have a metric called median annual income by occupation adjusted by the true living cost. And you see that basically everybody across the board, construction, education, food preparation and service, sales and retail, public safety, everything has gone down between 2001 and 2023. And they have also this leftover earnings after basic living expenses. And they show you basically how much money do you have. And if you're single with just one child, then you just start going to the negatives, like several $1,000s. And 2 children, Jesus Christ, like many tens of thousands of dollars increase. So on and so forth. Like it's terrifying. And then couple, no children. Okay, yeah, you're a little bit better off. 1 kid, okay, you're still like in the green. 2 kids, you're like carefully like scraping by. 3 kids, and you're barely above water. You're 1 car breakdown from having a serious, like 1 engine replacement from being fucked.
Now that we looked at a few examples of how dire the situation actually is, let's talk about why. Why is the cost of living increasing so much?
And it's not just only the States. I'm using the States always as the primary example because the States is supposed to be where it works best. The States is the country which has had every privilege. It has been the global hegemon. It has the reserve currency for the entire world. It has the largest reserves of whatever the fuck it might need, from self-sufficiency in oil to manufacturing output to food to a huge and educated base and population that it could tap into if it needs to. And also imperialism and all the benefits of that. And despite this, despite all these benefits, the United States is, I'm sorry to say for all intents and purposes, a shithole, where houses have so much outpaced by hundreds of thousands of dollars each year people's ability to buy them. Healthcare has only become tighter in what they approve for you to actually get covered. Meanwhile, the prices have only gone up. Rent, same thing, food, insurance, everything that you need in your everyday life. And the reason is because these enterprises need to and can raise their prices because the logic of the system requires that they reinvest into the circuit of capital so they can continue growing, so that they can maintain their position in the market, so that they don't get eaten up by other competitors, the few of them that exist, which are getting more and more limited as time goes on. And of course, the capitalist state protects capital. It doesn't protect consumers, it doesn't protect citizens, it protects the rights of these deregulated enterprises to do whatever the fuck they want. That's why you have bailouts for these mega corporations and banks. That's why you have a prioritization of corporate profits and slashing of taxes for them and not for you. And there's no limits on these enterprises because the vast majority of them are oligopolies or monopolies. There's so few places you can turn to for insurance, healthcare insurance, for example, right? There's these huge asset management companies that buy up all the fucking land and all the buildings and all the homes, so you can only kind of either rent from them or try to buy from another megacorp. And this corporate consolidation, meaning a handful of these companies that dominate housing, food, healthcare, logistics, wherever, allows them to basically set prices however the fuck they want. Human rights are assets, they're not social goods. Housing is treated as an asset, healthcare is treated as an asset that can be speculated on. So-called market stability is more important than, for example, housing as a human right. There's so much speculation, which allows for artificial scarcity to be made, which raises prices and rents ridiculously, despite the fact that there's nobody who can even pay these ridiculous, or people are forced to pay these ridiculous amounts because they have to. And then they use whatever trouble of the month as a cover. It was COVID, it was the war in Ukraine, it was tariffs, it was supply chain disturbances, it was whatever the fuck, right? And this is the usual thing, like they'll use one of these excuses to raise prices, and then the prices won't go down afterwards when whatever the fucking thing that went on is gone. COVID is no longer an issue. There's no global pandemic anymore, but those ridiculous price hikes that you saw remained, and then they just ended up with more price hikes instead of reducing them because they're not going to say no to more profits. And the end is just like this. Prices will continue to rise as capital has power, and wages, real wages, will continue to fall or remain stagnant because labor does not have any political power. And the only way to overcome this imbalance is for labor to organize, but the only way for it to be set into a more permanent form, I guess, so that you don't have to constantly be fighting and striving against this, is for there to be an actual workers' government that gives a fuck about people's living standards, that has to maintain it as a basis of principle, right? And that's kind of the point of today. The situation will only get worse if there is not proper education, agitation, organization. It's the stuff that we've said a million times over. It's very comforting to complain about the situation. There's a lot of camaraderie in it. But the only way of actively fixing this, and to live in a country where things get better year for year instead of getting worse, like how the Chinese live, is to actively try to put in a system that will benefit the vast majority of people instead of the tiny sliver of people who diddle kids in the government. Jesus Christ. Alright, and that's, I guess, all for today. I want to hear about you guys. How has this changed for you, wherever you may be? Wages and prices of things. Let me know. That's all for this time. If you enjoy what I do, then please support me on Patreon. It really does help. I'd like to thank my patrons, so thank you too.